Michael Gordon was literally buried under paperwork. 2 days ago, he asked to bring every file they had on Al Husseini, which was quite a few. Although he had seen these files 100 times before, he still felt it was important to look through them again. The reason for that was that the death of Omar Nabiri. He still couldn't understand how Al Husseini could find out about this trap so quickly. The plan was still in development and was not yet in progress. It was an inside information. So the only explanation coming to mind was that he had a leak inside the agency, and that was something no one wanted to hear. The conversation with his superior was still fresh in Michael's mind. 2 hours after he found out about Omar's death, he received a call to his office. Without any introduction, a brisk, harsh voice spoke on the other end of the line. "What happened?" Michael sighed. "I'm still not sure. That's not the answer I was looking for. This is the only one I've got at the moment." "Stop this bullshit, Michael. I'm not interested in details. I want to know what you think." "It would be only speculations. Besides, you won't like what I think." "I don't care what you think. I will or won't like. This operation was under your supervision and it blew into our faces. Now I have to explain. How did we let a successful businessman get killed under our noses? So you better tell me what I've asked you." "We don't have to explain to anyone. The operation was not in progress. People get killed every day. Why do we have to be any different?" "There is always someone to answer to for anything we do. That is something you as a field agent don't understand, but I have to face every day. Do you think we're the only ones monitoring the situation? There are others and I have to tell them what happened and they won't like the answer." "We're still not sure yet." "Please stop stalling, Michael. Tell me what you think." Michael frowned. "First of all, let me ask you, why wasn't I told that someone else was aware of the operation? It was not your place to know. How do you expect me to work like that?" "I expect you to follow the orders." "Why wasn't I told, Harry? It's not like you to keep me in the dark." The voice on the other end sighed heavily. "Do you think I had any choice in the matter? Sometimes even I have to be an asshole." Michael had no response to that. "Please, Michael, there's no time. Like I said, you won't like it, but anyhow, here it goes. There's a leak." The voice on the other end stopped breathing. There was a silence for a long time when finally the voice spoke up. "You're right. I don't like that. That is not the answer I could go upstairs with." Michael shook his head. It was always the same story. "Why don't you come up with something better? I can give you a few days. You know something, Harry? As a field agent, I learned one thing always to be true. The more people who know about an operation, the more chances it'll go sideways." "It was not an option, Michael. I had to report. Just do me a favor and find some other explanation." "What if there is none?" "Then our problem is much worse than we thought. You have until next Friday." Michael heard a click and the call ended. That was 4 days ago, and Michael slept only 5 hours since then. He expected a call any time now. Michael knew that Harry was right. He needed to come up with a better explanation than a leak inside the agency. That is why he was looking through the files, to find a name. It wasn't too hard to think of a lie. The real challenge was to make it true. First of all, he needed somebody outside of the agency that they've employed during preparation of the operation. This part was easy, since ones involved mostly were contractors hired to play small parts. It was necessary to have as few as possible people who'd know about the operation. That's why he used contractors. They don't ask questions. The more difficult part was to select someone from this group of contractors who died recently. Ideally, it would be something he wouldn't need to arrange. That would be much quicker and easier. Arrangement of someone's death was always messy. Too many complications along the way. For one, falsification of time of death would be a problem, so arranging a death was the last resort. And up until yesterday, Michael thought he'd have to go through with it, but he got lucky. The contractor named Karim he employed to play factory owner who wanted to do business with Omar was found dead. And what was even better, it looked like he was tortured. It was perfect. The last piece of the puzzle was to find a link between Karim and al-Hassani. There, Michael thought. That's what I've been looking for. The name he found was Rashid. He was one of the members of al-Hassani's organization. He and Karim used to spend time in the same brothel, so it would look like careless Karim said something to one of the girls during pillow talk and, well, the rest was the aftermath. On that note, he got up and walked away from the table. Time to sleep. The second he thought that, silence was broken by a phone ringing. Shit, Michael cursed and picked up the phone. Michael? It was Harry's voice. Who else? Please tell me you have something. I have something. Michael heard a sigh of relief. Good. When will I have it in writing? Just give me a day. I'm afraid I can't do that. I need it right away. So it was really a rhetorical question? Michael's voice was sarcastic. I don't think you understand what I had to go through to buy you this much time. You didn't do it for me, Harry. I just as well could tell them what I think really happened. And what good would that do? Don't pretend like you don't care, because I know you do. We're both in this too deep. I haven't slept properly for days, Harry. Give me a break. There was a short silence. Okay, you've got 10 hours. That's all I can give you, and I hope you can appreciate what I'll need to go through to give you that much. You only have to talk to me, nice as I am. On the other hand, I have to eat all the crap coming from upstairs. Michael hung up the phone, walked to the couch, laid down, closed his eyes, and started to think. It was an old habit of his to think during his sleep. Right from the beginning of his career as a CIA field agent, he realized that the only time he had to really think was during his sleep. One might assume nothing productive can come from half dozing. It's not even a real rest for that matter, but that would be the wrong impression. All it takes is practice. In fact, Michael came up with the most productive solutions during his half-sleep, half-thinking process. His thoughts were at least worrisome, if not more. The only ones who knew about this operation were me, Harry, and some unknown third party. He couldn't imagine the leak coming from Harry. The man was a true believer in the cause, but anything was possible. If one thing was unquestionably true, it was the fact that no one could be trusted. Government, like any other organization, had its flaws. Those flaws were people. Michael wasn't one of those cynics who lost faith in humankind, but he knew the realistic nature of things. He believed that people were inherently good, but when it came down to trivial things of life, they were careless. Only a small percent would involve themselves in something really bad. But if it's a minor thing, maybe slipping a little piece of information here and there, and you get a considerable sum of money, so you can put your kid through college, then many people would go along with that. Many, but not most. Michael could understand that, but he also knew that it was a flaw in the system, because any organization consisting of people takes all the good with them along with the bad. And despite all the good that the government represented, it was not an exception either. It was an organization like any other. Trust no one. That was his motto. So Harry could do it. It was not a ridiculous possibility. However, it was more likely that the leak came from the mysterious third party, the party from upstairs. And that's what made Michael worry, because it meant that this third party did not want for al-Hassani to be caught, at least not by him. Whether that means that the agency had different plans for al-Hassani or just wanted to take care of him under different circumstances was unclear. He was never good at politics, and that's probably why he was stuck as a field agent. To say that Michael was irritated was to say nothing. His plan was perfect in its simplicity, and what was more important, it could be quickly executed. The idea was to create a competition for al-Hassani, serious enough for him to notice and to draw him out of his hole. Based on his profile, Michael was sure that al-Hassani would react. He was too ambitious to let any competition dangle around. He would show himself. It was inevitable. But it was interrupted before Michael had a chance to realize it. Someone gave word to Al-Hassani while operation was still in the development stage. The question was, what was he going to do now? He needed to decide whether to pursue Al-Hassani further or to just drop the matter and roll over the account onto some bureaucrats. No, he couldn't do that. This kind of subtleness was not in him. Besides, he saw what a monster could do. He needed to be stopped, and that was exactly what Michael was planning to do. Only this time he would do it himself, without involving anyone, not even contractors. It has to be unofficial, completely off the books. Of course, it'd be really hard to catch one of the most fearsome terrorists who was supported by a large organization, or possibly by several organizations, all by himself. But hard was not impossible. And one way, the most obvious way to do that, was to make Al-Hassani find him. That was extremely dangerous because it meant that Michael had to let himself be caught. In such cases, there was always a high probability of death, but he played a captive before and knew how to handle the situation when it came to that. He'd done that even being an inexperienced agent, somehow escaping the seemingly inevitable fate. It was in Afghanistan, and he was captured by Russians. He remembered how listening to his captors discussing different ways to torture him raised his anger. It helped him to shut his fears out. He was sitting in the far corner of the L-shaped room and could only see 2 of the captors in front of him. And then he heard 4 other voices coming from around the corner. 2 of his enemies were still arguing when Michael managed to untie himself. Grabbing one of them by the throat, he simultaneously stabbed the other one, also in the throat, with a sharp stick he picked up from a nearby table. Twisting the man's neck took Michael only a second. He could hear by the laughing voices that the rest of his captors remained ignorant of his release. Bad for them, he remembered, smiling at the thought. There wasn't much struggle. Michael emerged into the main room like a ghostly vision, and in shimmering light his movements appeared instantaneous. He cut down 3 of his captors still in their seats. The 4th one managed to jump up, trying to unholster his gun with a shaking hand. He was still trying to do that, looking down, when Michael appeared behind him, cutting his throat. He killed 20 men that day and walked out of his prison like he did numerous times afterwards, like he would do again. He would bring Al-Hassani down, even if it would be the last thing he would do. Michael suddenly became aware of the knocking on his door. He opened his eyes and looked at his watch. 11:45. He had been resting for only 30 minutes. For pity's sake, is there any rest? He tried to ignore the knock, but the intruder was persistent. "Sir?" came from the other side of the door. Michael closed his eyes again and said, "Come in, Sam." A young man, barely out of his 20s, walked into the room, looking really nervous. "You need to come downstairs, sir. I'm sure it can wait a couple of hours, Sam. I need rest." "I think it's urgent, sir. The search team came back. They sent for you." "God damn it, Sam, spit it out." Michael started to get irritated, and that made the young man even more nervous. "They found Al-Hassani." Michael opened his eyes. "What do you mean they found him?" I mean his body, sir. Al-Hassani is dead." Al-Tay was looking back along the road they came from. His father, his mother, and 2 of his sisters. He hated the whole thing. He didn't understand why they had to leave, even after his father explained to him that this was the only way to stay safe. Even then, he couldn't see his father's point. And although he trusted his father always, it didn't make him feel easier about it. All his friends and the only home he ever knew were left behind, without so much as a second thought. Feeling this never made him complain, though, because he could see how hard it was for his father to make such a decision, and he also saw how scared his mother was. He didn't want to add any more worries to that. However, his older sister was not as understanding. "Why did we have to leave in such a rush, Pa? I didn't have any chance to say goodbye to my friends or to collect my things." "If we took your things, we'd have to buy 2 more mules." "But Pa..." "Enough, Aisha. I'm not going to explain it again." Aisha was about to say something, but her mother looked at her with warning eyes, and she thought better of it. Leela looked at her husband and saw how greatly worried he was, and her fears grew deeper. Ahmed was a good man, and now his conscience and his fear were tearing him apart. His fear for his family and his conscience for what he's done. I had no choice, he repeated to himself over and over, but it wasn't helping. The fact was, a piece of his soul died that night, and he knew he would never be the same again. Ahmed was not a coward. He'd done his fair share of fighting and turning his back to run, leaving his friends behind, but it never crossed his mind before. Okay, I'll start over. Ahmed was not a coward. He'd done his fair share of fighting, and turning his back to run, leaving his friends behind, never crossed his mind before. But it was different this time. He had a family now, and before he had no one to be afraid for, no one to lose. Since his parents were killed in front of him, Ahmed had lost faith in God and his justice. Left as an orphan on the streets of Bukhara, he grew up to be mistrustful, bitter, and a quite dangerous young man. Joining the Khwarezmian fighting troops of the Shah Muhammad, he managed to have the resemblance of friendship with his fellow troopers. During his years of fighting, he never learned to be attached to anything. There was nothing important in his life worth keeping. That made him fearless in a way that earned him a high respect among soldiers. Troops were always moving around and never stayed long in one place, so he didn't get accustomed to any of the cities. He was disconnected from life, and fighting was all he knew. Ahmed honestly believed that it was the only life for him, and he could not have another. That was until he met Leela. He left the army and settled down in a small village 20 miles off Bukhara. And he was so happy to lead the life of a farmer, and everything was perfect until 2 days ago. The event of that night kept circling in his head. It was a night like any other. He came back from work, tired as usual, but happy. Happy because his youngest daughter ran out to him screaming, "Papa, Papa's home!" Because he saw his son standing in the doorway, waiting for his father, and he knew that he and his son were as one. And finally, he saw his oldest daughter and his wife were busy preparing dinner for him. Ahmed remembered how later on that night, when the house fell asleep, its quietness was disrupted by the heavy knock at the door. Leela was startled and frightened. "Who is it, Ahmed?" "It's probably Narad captured a thief on the field. Don't worry. Go back to sleep." He got up and went to open the door, and as he did, he saw a man lying on his porch covered in blood. He quickly checked to see if the man was breathing, and he felt that he was still alive. As carefully as possible, he picked the wounded man up and got him inside the house. Leela was already standing in the room waiting. "Who is he?" "I don't know. He was lying on the porch when I found him. He's still alive." He walked across the room and put the wounded man on the couch. "Bring some hot water, Leela." Leela hurried to the kitchen. Meanwhile, Ahmed gently removed the man's shirt to see where the wound was. He could see straight away that it was bad. It was most likely fatal. The man was stabbed in the abdominal area, and it looked like it happened a while ago. Leela came back with water. "He needs a doctor, Ahmed. Maybe you'd better get Samir." "I don't think it'll do any good. Samir's house is a mile away. It'll be half an hour before we get back, and he'll probably be dead by then. Besides, I will not leave you alone with some stranger." "But he's unconscious." Ahmed didn't bother to explain that a dying man can do much harm before his time. He saw plenty of examples. "Let's clean him up. He has as much of a chance to survive with us as with Samir. Give me the water." As he turned to take a bowl of water from Leela, the wounded stranger suddenly grabbed him by the arm. "They are coming," he said in a hoarse voice. Ahmed took the man's hand in his and tried to calm him down. "You're safe. Try to relax. You shouldn't move right now. You've been wounded in your stomach." The stranger opened his eyes, and when Ahmed looked into them, his heart fell. He always knew that the day would come when he'd have to pray for his good life, and today was that day. He tried to get a hold of himself, and he asked, "Who's coming?" The stranger didn't answer. He tried again. "What's your name?" No answer still. "We're your friends. My name is Ahmed, and this is my wife, Leela. You're welcome in our house. We'll take care of you." "Don't bother. I'm a dead man," the stranger responded. But I thank you for your kindness, and I will repay you for it. Maybe it will wash away some of my sins." The last part was said for his own benefit rather than theirs. "My name is Qasim, and I'm captain of Shah's personal guard. 2 days ago, Bukhara was attacked by Mongols. All of our defenses were swiped away. We did all we could, but in the end everyone got killed, all of my men." He started coughing, and Ahmed could see that he was getting weaker by the minute. "Take it easy, my friend. You don't need to tell your story right now. It can wait." Kazim ignored his suggestion. It was as if he felt compelled to continue, as if more than just his life was at stake. "I survived by a miracle. They presumed I was dead and left me lying on the floor of the palace. I managed to take clothes off a dead Mongol so I could move unnoticed. I knew the way to the hidden treasure chamber, and as I felt bad about stealing, I knew I'd need some money, so I went and took what I needed. And as I was getting out, one of those bastards saw me. We got into a fight, and I won, but not without a price. It was 4 hours ago." "How did you manage to survive that long with a wound like that?" Ahmed asked in amazement. Qasim smiled. "You'd be surprised what a man can get through. I also had a chance to take mead with me. If you drink it and don't eat, it can help stop infection, but only for a while. I don't know what I was hoping for. I guess to run into someone like you." Qasim made a gesture with his hand to his throat, trying to show that he wanted a drink, and Ahmed quickly responded. Qasim drank 2 glasses of water, and only then could he speak again. "You have to hurry. I had a head start. Those savages stayed to destroy the city, but it won't be long before they'll get here. You have until sunrise at the most." "But that's a couple of hours, no more," Leela gasped. "That's not enough time to warn everybody." Ahmed already knew the answer to that. The wounded man looked up at his wife, then his eyes were back at him again. Qasim finally said what was already in Ahmed's mind. "You have to leave now. There's no time for warning the rest." Ahmed always thought that he knew what it was like to lead a hard life, and having forced tough decisions before made him believe that was as hard as it could get. This night proved him wrong. He realized that a difficult decision was when you needed to choose between bad and worse, and to make the decision you have to part with a piece of your soul. The fact was he probably wouldn't be able to eat. The fact was he probably wouldn't be able to leave if his experiences as a soldier didn't make him aware what would happen to his family if he stayed. So he knew what needed to be done, and there was no point to delay it any further. "We have to clean you up quickly. I brought an extra mule 2 days ago. It can carry you. We need to hurry, Leela." "No," Qasim shook his head. "I will stay." Ahmed's face turned red with anger. "If I'm to run like a coward without warning my neighbors about the danger coming, I will at least remain human and try to save a wounded man." "You can't save me." Kashim's eyes became coarse, and all the hoarseness was gone from his voice. It was as hard as steel now. "I will stay." This was not an argument, it was a command. Ahmed could see now that this man was truly a leader. Kashim's eyes grew softer again. He was looking at Ahmed with pity, knowing what he had to go through, perhaps because he went through the same thing himself. "I will stay, my friend, and do not worry. I still have enough strength in me to warn everyone else. I will do it once you're gone." Ahmed could see it was a lie. This man was at the point of dying, and only his will was keeping him alive. "He'll let go as soon as we leave," he realized. "Leela, wake up the kids. Take only what we need. We're leaving now." Leela hurried out of the room, and Qasim followed her with his eyes, and when she was gone he turned to face Ahmed. "I didn't want to do it in front of your wife. Somehow it felt wrong." "Felt wrong?" "My pocket. Get in my pocket." Ahmed saw that it was harder and harder for Qasim to talk. He reached into the man's pocket and pulled out a bag full of coins. There was enough money for him and his family to live for a month without working. "Go into the other one." As he did, Ahmed felt that it was full of stones. When he pulled out his hand, it was full of diamonds. He could buy a palace with what he held. "Take it." Ahmed's face grew with shock. I can't." "You'd be a damned fool not to take it." Kashim's voice was angry. "Why should it go to waste? Why should it go to the enemy? You need to take care of your family. You can start over. That's what I want. That's my dying wish, and that's exactly what you're going to do." "You're right. It does feel wrong. None of this is right, but you have to go on. It's not only up to you." Kashim looked over Ahmed's shoulder, making him turn. He saw his family standing in the doorway. "You have to go, my friend." "Thank you, Kashim. I wish I could do something for you." "You already did. Go now, and may the Almighty be with you." Ahmed remembered looking at the house from a distance and realized for the first time that it was the moment when he fully comprehended what he was doing. He was running away, leaving the place where he spent the happiest years of his life to burn. Nothing would be the same from now on. He gave up on the only good thing that was left in him: principles. But there was no other choice, and if he was ashamed back then, the feeling was slowly passing. He would do anything for his family, whether it meant fighting an army or crawling on his knees begging for mercy. He would sell his soul before himself as an entity. Oh, I see. He would sell his soul because he himself as an entity did not exist anymore. He was alive for one reason, and for one reason only: to make sure his family was safe. Ahmed was deep in his thoughts when Leila drove next to him. He looked back to see his kids asleep, crammed together inside a small cart, which was the only thing they had that could carry the family. Then he looked back at his wife and saw how tired she was. "I'll take over soon. We need to stop and change over mules, and then you can rest. I'll tie the third mule to the cart and we'll drive." "I'm all right, don't worry. You look very pale. You're the one who needs a rest. I can carry on for a while." Ahmed smiled. No matter how bad she felt, she'd always make him feel better. No matter how bad he felt, she could always make him feel better. Leila smiled back, and Ahmed, even after 15 years, still marveled at how beautiful she looked smiling. But this only lasted for a second, and then the tired, worried look was back on her face. "Where are we going, Ahmed? What are we going to do?" "There was a rumor I heard once about a land that no army was able to conquer. The one who was talking about it said it was a paradise on earth. He said that this land lays between two great lakes over a chain of mountains. The road to this mountain leads over the Garagum Desert." All the blood drained from Leila's face. It became as white as snow. "We'll never make it, Ahmed. It's hundreds of miles of empty desert. Where do we get water or food, not to mention the sun? The sun is deadly this time of year." "Don't worry, we're going to go straight through the desert. We'll need to get Konya Urich, then we'll join a caravan of traders and follow the Great Silk Route. As far as I know, it should lead us to the Great Chain of Mountains, and I think the land I heard rumor of lies over it. There are too many complications. First of all, it's too far to the Kona Urgents. We don't have enough money to get us there. And as far as money goes, how do you plan to join a trader's caravan? I heard they don't allow free riders." "We've got money, Leila." "What are you talking about? Where from? Why don't I know anything about it?" "Kashim gave me his money and much more. We don't have to worry about it. I mean, ever." Leila grew silent. They drove like this for a while, and Ahmed finally turned to look at his wife and saw her crying. "I think we can afford to make a short stop," he broke the silence. When they stopped, Leila crawled into the cart to check on the kids. Ahmed, meanwhile, changed over a mule that was the most exhausted and got onto the front seat of the cart. He looked to see if Leila got comfortable enough and started to move again. It wasn't too long until Leila got up and sat beside him. Her eyes were red after crying. "He saved us." "That he did." They went silent again. Then Leila asked, "How long do you think it will take for us to get to that place?" "Half a year at least." "I'm scared, Ahmed." "Everything will be fine. Trust me." Leila smiled and put her hand on his face. "I always do." Suddenly, the same feeling washed over Ahmed as he had when he first saw his wife, the kind that made him believe he was indestructible, the strongest, kindest person. And he knew then, like he knew now, that she belonged to him for all eternity. And he was sure she knew that too. I'll read again later.